There are a lot of different narratives out there. A couple of the things that I'm tracking, I wanted to share some of the things in this video. So we'll go through them. This is one of the later posts that I'll mention here. But first, I want to point this out because we did get updated FTD data for NIO and NIO stock. We continue to see elevated levels of FTDs. I will wait and come back and do a separate video talking about that, talking about Alibaba and then some others as well. I want to wait until we're actually done with the trade week with this long Easter weekend. So then I'll talk a little more in depth about that. But in the meantime, I've tried to align these things time frame wise from earlier in the week. And so you've got, for example, this post that talks about the difference between China buying smartphones and cars versus the US. This post coming out in the evening of April 15th. Then a little bit later on that evening, you've got Chinese data beating across the board. Yet again, some of the positive narrative from the folks paying attention to China's economy and the idea that it is doing better than maybe some were expecting. This a reference to how China has reduced what they're exporting to the US. Again, we're still in that evening of April 15th. And now here we go. So this is kind of setting the table. We've got this ongoing narrative. This is one of the louder ones, and it's the back and forth between the US and China. All the posturing is what I've called it. It's noisy, it's loud. I had said I thought it would get louder before we would end up seeing them come together and do a deal. I still think that's in play, obviously, with these tariff rates getting, I mean, it's just beyond ridiculous at this point. But I do think that's just part of the posturing going back and forth. So this was, as of early morning, this post came out April 16th. And so one of the narratives that I'm tracking is that the US-China narrative with the tariffs. This from the side of the US, some of the negotiations and things they're saying that they're trying to do with respect to that. And now here's the other narrative, and it's I call it the Powell versus Trump narrative, or the Federal Reserve versus the Trump administration. I think that Trump wants reduced interest rates. I do not think that Powell and the Federal Reserve, not the federal government, want to do that. So we've got this narrative unfolding at the same time. We've got the China narrative and back and forth between the US and China. Here you've got Jerome Powell saying the Fed is not going to be influenced by political pressure. Again, they're just going back and forth. And this is the latest. This is as of the afternoon is when I saw it here on April 17th, which is when I'm recording this. And so now you've got Trump saying he can remove Chair Powell. This is just, again, it's one of the two narratives that is ongoing, but this actually might play a key role. And I think it would surprise people if it does, but I wonder if this won't end up being a part of a deal or a proposed deal by Trump. I think he really wants a piece, or to have the US getting a piece of TikTok. And so he has done a 90-day extension, just like with the tariffs. It came a little before the tariff extension. But I think that these things could all end up kind of shaking out and having an effect on each other. And so you've got the different narratives, the US versus China and the tariff side of things. And eventually I do think they come to the table and work something out. Then you've got Powell and Trump going back and forth. And the question is, will Trump allow the stock market to crash or drop enough if that's what he ultimately thinks it will take to get Powell and the Federal Reserve to actually reduce interest rates? And will we see that by, let's say, June? I don't know. These are things that I'm watching and tracking and thinking about. So I wanted to offer them in kind of a different video, just because I'm not talking much about NIO in this video. I will talk about NIO heading into the weekend. As I said, we've got new FTD data. There's also a lot more happening. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you all again very soon.